it would just demolish things on the ground. Why don't we see that?
I have no idea.
That's a good answer.
Angela and local radio station Mandatory FM introduced me to Ricky Sorrells. We had a drink at the local bar where he agreed to meet with me the following day.
All these aircraft in the area, they wouldn't normally be flying.
They told me that Ricky had seen a lot more than lights in the sky.
Hey, we called that door, kiddo. I used to think that people that saw this and came on camera and said this kind of stuff, I thought, man, these guys need some help, you know? But it happened to me, and I can't change that. I had a hard time dealing with it, but...
So you looked out all the way in that direction, you didn't see the edge? Looking up, Ricky said he could not see the edge of the craft in any direction. You couldn't see the edge of it?
Couldn't see the edge of it. But I do know this, it's bigger. You could have landed an airplane on that, I believe.
God, it's an incredible story.
Nothing, no sound, no when it was hovering, nothing when it moved from left to right, and nothing when it took off. And
holding his rifle and sometimes actually looking through his scope, Ricky stood under the craft for about 3 minutes.
I don't know if you've ever been in that situation, but
no, I certainly haven't.
I've been in it only very few times in my life, but I had to slow my mind down to actually think about what to do with it, the information that I was receiving for the first time. And that's what I did. I studied it. You know, I seen no nuts, bolts, rivets, seams, no welds, none of this. It looked like a piece of sheet metal. You know, it wasn't shiny. It was a dull, I don't know what you call it, matte finish maybe. And this is what I had a hard time with, was if something was to leave, in my mind, it should pivot up and go, like an airplane would. Yeah. This did not do that. This stayed completely flat, and it went at a 45-degree angle away. And it took off at such a high rate of speed that no way I can describe it is if I would have blinked, I would have thought it just disappeared.
On January 21st, 2008, Robert Powell and Glenn Schultz received radar data from the FAA. This image was created directly from that data. Each black dot, and there were over 140, represent radar confirmation of an unknown object whose flight path is seen heading towards Crawford Ranch.
I just want to know what it is. You know, why was it here? What was it? Is it ours? You know, that kind of thing.
Although the military initially denied being in the area, the official explanation from the Air Force is now a flight of F-16s. After each witness I meet, I find it increasingly difficult to accept the military's response.
I've actually stepped back and tried to view the big picture. I would like to find out what it is. And if people believe me, okay. If they don't, that's okay too.
T-minus 15 seconds and counting. 9.
Mercury astronaut Gordon Cooper was the last American astronaut to go up in space alone. He orbited the planet 22 times. While stationed at Edwards Air Force Base in the early 1950s, Cooper was part of an event that has never been explained.
I was having some cameramen film the installation of a precision landing facility we were putting in right on the edge of the dry lake. And this saucer flew right over them and put down 3 little gear and landed out on the dry lake bed. And they went out, picked up their cameras and moved on out toward him filming. And he lifted off, put the gear back in the well, and climbed out at a very high rate of speed and disappeared. By the time they got back with the developed film, I was on the higher and higher and higher level officer talking to me. Finally with the colonel telling me to, you know, when the film arrived at my desk, to put it in the carrier pouch. There would be a courier there at my office by that time already, and they'd arranged for him to fly in our base airplane back to Washington with these films. And do not run prints, etc., etc., etc.
Did you watch the film?
we didn't have a chance to run it. I had a chance to hold it up to the window and look at it. It was certainly good film.
Did you ever keep in touch with anybody about it or discuss it?
How would I keep in touch with anybody about it? There's no way within the military or within the government of keeping track of something that is classified unless you're directly involved in it, and I was not.
This meeting was a turning point for my father. Gordon Cooper was an icon of his generation, and my father was amazed by his story.
At that point in time, there was no doubt in my mind that this vehicle was made at some other place than here on Earth.
That must have been extraordinary.
Yeah, well, Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon coming true.
After the film was sent to Washington, it was never seen or heard of again. Apollo 14 astronaut Edgar Mitchell was the 6th man to walk on the moon. He has met with people in military and government positions from several countries who have privately shared with him information about UFOs.
Seem to be well-documented events that represent flying craft that do not match anything we have in an earthbound arsenal.
I felt that Dr. Mitchell would know the reasons for secrecy. Why are we stonewalled?
I can't answer that question. I think it's long past time to open this up to the public. But the best answer is probably because they don't know what to do about it anyhow.
My father and I caught up with President Carter at a book signing in San Francisco.
What happened to the UFO issue?
What happened to
The UFO issue.
I don't really know what happened to it. I saw one, but I don't know what, it just disappeared.
Did you ask when you were president? What he said?
Yes, but there's a lot of different answers, and nobody knows has proof of things.
The question of secrecy has puzzled me for years. I asked the panelists in D.C. to offer possible explanations. Some of the questions that Man on Street have, and whoever wants to address this can, is why, in your opinion, would any government hide this from the people or not disclose this type of information of what's going on?
And when there are witnesses or sightings coming in, they are very reluctant to pick up the issue, to investigate, because they have no structure and they don't know how to handle it.
Si existe una amenaza de origen desconocido que no tiene explicación, eso podría amenazar este sistema de conservación de poder.
I suspect there are at least 5 agencies in the U.S. government that have investigative capability and do maintain files on UFOs.
The public opinion, I think, is asking for information and is ready to believe that there is something serious. If we can convince the government, it could change. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jean-Claude Ribes, and I am an astronomer working for the French Centre National de la Recherche Scientifique from 1963 to 1998. I contributed to the French Cometa report, a 3-year military study on UFOs and national security, released in 1999.
Cometa translates as Committee for In-Depth Studies. It was, in essence, a high-level think tank. Cometa included such members as 4-star General Bernard Laurent, who was the former commander of the French Tactical Air Force and military counselor to the Prime Minister, as well as André Lebeau, former president of the National Center for Space Studies, and attorney-at-law Michel Algarin, director of the Cometa Group. The Cometa Group published its findings in an historical 90-page report titled UFOs in Defense: What Should We Prepare For? The formation of the Cometa Group was initiated by French Air Force General Denis Letty. Cometa concluded that about 5% of the cases studied were inexplicable and that the best explanation was what the authors called the extraterrestrial hypothesis. With investigative journalist Leslie Kane, I flew to France to meet General Letty. We met the general at his home on the outskirts of Paris. We went over some of the more puzzling encounters that led the group to their conclusions.
And he saw the disk hovering.
Pilot sightings confirmed by radar.
Going very quickly out of his sight.
And cases involving soil and plant analysis from landing sites. I had looked into one of these cases myself. Farmer Renato Nicolai from Trans-en-Provence reported that a disc-shaped object landed in his garden in the late afternoon.
La forme, c'était comme si on posait deux assiettes, l'une sur l'autre.
When he told his wife, she assumed he had heat stroke and had hallucinated. However, scientific analysis of the landing site showed high levels of radiation, and when I visited the site back in 1999,